The Rhymes of Mother Goose, the original Voland edition. A foreword. Children, as well as their interested parents, will eagerly welcome this beautiful edition of one of the great nursery classics, just as a worthy edition of Shakespeare is welcomed by discriminating adult readers. But some may ask what there is in these simple melodies attributed to Mother Goose, which gives them so secure and beloved a place in the home, the school, and the public library. Is it the humor, the action, the rhythm, or the mystery of the theme which appeals so strongly to critical little minds in each generation of childhood, and even to adult minds so fortunate as to have retained some of the refreshing naivete of early years? It is useless to try to explain the charm of these nonsense melodies. The children themselves do not know why they love them. No mother can tell us the magic of the spell which seems to be cast over her restless baby as she croons to it a Mother Goose lullaby. No primary teacher quite understands why the mere repetition or singing of a Mother Goose jingle will transform her listless, inattentive class into one of all eagerness and attention. But the mother and teacher agree that the best of these verses have an even more potent influence than that of innocently diverting and entertaining the child. The healthy moral, so subtly suggested in many of the rhymes, is unconsciously absorbed by the child's receptive mind, helping him to make his own distinction between right and wrong, bravery and cowardice, generosity and selfishness. Or hers. That's been added to update the times. From a literary standpoint also, these rhymes have proved of real value in creating a taste for the truly musical in poetry and song. They train the ear and stir the imagination of the child as no other verses do. Many famous poets and writers trace their first inspiration and love for things literary back to the nursery songs and fairy tales of their childhood. Teachers well know that children who have reveled in these rhymes and stories at the time of their strongest appeal step naturally and appreciatively into the great fields of good literature which are beyond. Knowing these things to be true, we do not hesitate to place this venerable classic on the shelf beside our Shakespeare and to send our children there for delight and inspiration. They will understand Shakespeare the better for having known and loved Mother Goose. But what about the personality of this classic writer? Was she really Mistress Elizabeth Goose, who is said to have lived in Boston about 200 years ago, and who crooned her nonsense jingles to a large and happy family of grandchildren? We are told that their father, Thomas Fleet, who was a printer by trade, thought to turn an honest penny with his mother-in-law's popular verses, so he published them in a small volume under the title of Songs for a Nursery, or Mother Goose's Melodies. A goose with a very long neck and a wide-open mouth flew across the title page, at least so the story goes. But we have to believe that it is only a story, for no copy of the book can be found, and nothing but tradition identifies Elizabeth Goose, the Boston grandmother, with the famous rhymester. We might feel sorry to be obliged to discredit this picturesque story of Mother Goose, if her real history were not even more mysterious. We know very little about the beloved patron of childhood, but what we do know is as follows. Mother Goose is most certainly of respectable French origin, for in 1697, a distinguished French writer, Charles Perrault, published in Paris a little book of familiar stories called Tales of My Mother Goose. Her identity, however, he leaves a mystery, except that in the front piece of his book is pictured an old woman by her fireside telling stories to an eager little family group. This volume contained the only prose tales that have ever been credited to Mother Goose, and they are still among the most popular stories in nursery or schoolrooms. The titles are as follows: Little Red Riding Hood, The Sisters Who Dropped from Their Mouths Diamonds and Toads, Bluebeard, The Sleeping Beauty, Puss in Boots, Cinderella, Riquet with the Tuft, and Tom Thumb. It is through her verses, however, that Mother Goose has won her well-deserved fame. The first collection under the name was published in London about 1765 by John Newbery. It may be, if Oliver Goldsmith were living, that he could tell us more about the origins of these verses than we are now ever likely to know. It is more than probable that he himself edited the little volume for John Newbery, and that he wrote the clever preface by a very great writer of very little books, as well as the quaint moral which supplements each rhyme. About 25 years later, this book was reprinted in our country by Isaiah Thomas of Worcester, Massachusetts. Several copies of this edition are preserved, one of which has been photographed and reproduced in facsimile by W. H. Whitmore of Boston. Other publishers also reprinted the English edition, one being done for John Newbery's grandson, Francis Power, in 1791. In 1810, another collection of melodies appeared under the title of Gammer Gurton's Garland. It was quite evidently a rival of Mother Goose, although it contained nearly all of her verses, besides many far less interesting ones gathered from other sources. Gammer Gurton's popularity, however, was short, and Mother Goose was revived about 1825 by a Boston firm, Monroe and Francis. In spite of the present multiplicity of beautiful books for children, they are constantly exhausting large editions of the one universally beloved book of melodies. Some of these volumes have been collected and edited by men of the highest literary judgment and ability, such as Goldsmith, with hardly a doubt, Ritson, and Hollowell, Andrew Lang, Charles Eliot Norton, Charles Welsh, and Edward Everett Hale. Certainly there is not another collection of juvenile literature which can boast such a list of scholarly editors. The deepest gratitude is due them for their careful and discriminating effort to preserve for the children of future generations this rich heritage of nursery melodies. Many less discriminating editors, however, have ruthlessly mutilated and adapted many of the rhymes to suit their fancy, thinking possibly that as Mother Goose is only a title, the verses attributed to her belong to the general public to use as they see fit. On the contrary, Mother Goose's melodies belong to the children, and no addition or change should be made except to those who are in such close sympathy with the child heart that they may act with the child's authority. This present edition of Mother Goose preserves the best of the verses which became so popular in England and America as to first demand their publication. It is the only true classic edition that has been published in modern times. The two authorities which have been followed are the editions published by John Newbery's grandson in London in 1791, and probably edited by Oliver Goldsmith, and the edition published in Boston in 1833 by Monroe and Francis, called The Only True Mother Goose Melodies. It is from this copy that the following quaint introduction by Mam Goose is quoted. Not all the favorites among the nursery rhymes are here, only those that first helped to make the fame of the fictitious but no less worthy patron of childhood. May her fame and her melodies be lovingly preserved to give joy and inspiration to many future generations of little children. Eulalie Osgood Grover, 1915. Hear what Mam Goose says. My dear little blossoms, there are now in this world, and always will be, a great many grannies beside myself, both in petticoats and pantaloons, some a deal younger, to be sure, but all monstrous wise, and of my own family name. These old women who never had chick or child of their own, but who always know how to bring up other people's children, will tell you with long faces that my enchanting, quieting, soothing volume, my all-sufficient anodyne for cross, peevish, won't-be-comforted little bairns, ought to be laid aside for more learned books, such as they could select and publish. Fudge! I tell you that all their batterings can't deface my beauties, nor their wise pratings equal my wiser prattlings, and all imitators of my refreshing songs might as well write another Billy Shakespeare as another Mother Goose. As we two great poets were born together, and shall go out of this world together. No, no, my melodies will never die, while nurses sing or babies cry. Mother Goose. Old Mother Goose, when she wanted to wander, would ride through the air on a very fine gander. Cock-a-doodle-doo, my dame has lost her shoe. My master's lost his fiddlestick, and knows not what to do. Peter, Peter, pumpkin eater, had a wife and couldn't keep her. He put her in a pumpkin shell, and then he kept her very well. Peter, Peter, pumpkin eater, had another and didn't love her. Peter learned to read and spell, and then he loved her very well. Ladybird, fly away home. Your house is on fire, your children will burn. One misty, moisty morning, when cloudy was the weather, I chanced to meet an old man, clothed all in leather. He began to compliment, and I began to grin. How do you do, and how do you do, and how do you do again? I like little pussy, her coat is so warm, and if I don't hurt her, she'll do me no harm. So I'll not pull her tail, nor drive her away, but pussy and I very gently will play. Little Bo Peep has lost her sheep, and can't tell where to find them. Leave them alone, and they'll come home, and bring their tails behind them. Little Nanny Etticoat, in a white petticoat, and a red nose, the longer she stands, the shorter she grows. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack, jump over the candlestick. Pretty John Watts, we are troubled with rats. Will you drive them out of the house? We have mice too in plenty, that feast in the pantry, but let them stay and nibble away. What harm in a little brown mouse? I'll tell you a story about Mary Morey, and now my story's begun. I'll tell you another about her brother, and now my story is done. Hush-a-bye, baby, upon the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. Down tumbles cradle and baby and all. Ride away, Johnny shall ride, and he shall have Pussycat tied to one side, and he shall have little dog tied to the other, and Johnny shall ride to see his grandmother. Dickory, dickory, dock, the mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1, the mouse ran down, dickory, dickory, dock. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T, U, V, W, X, and Y, and Z. Now that I've said my ABC, tell me what you think of me. The little robin grieves when the snow is on the ground, for the trees have no leaves and no berries can be found. The air is cold, the worms are hid. The air is cold, the worms are hid. For Robin here, what can be done? Let's strew around some crumbs of bread, and then he'll live till the snow is gone. Little Tommy Tittlemouse lived in a little house. He caught fishes in other men's ditches. About the bush, Willie, about the beehive. About the bush, Willie, I'll meet thee alive. Ba, ba, black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, Mary, have I 3 bags full, 1 for my master, 1 for my dame, but none for the little boy who cries in the lane. Hickety, pickety, my black hen, she lays eggs for gentlemen. Gentlemen come every day to see what my black hen doth lay. Willie boy, where are you going? Oh, let us go with you this sunshiny day. I'm going to the meadow to see them a-mowing. I'm going to help the girls turn the new hay. 3 children sliding on the ice upon a summer's day. As it fell out, they all fell in, the rest they ran away. Oh, had these children been at school or sliding on dry ground, 10,000 pounds to 1 penny, they had not then been drowned. Ye parents who have children dear, and ye too who have none, if you would keep them safe abroad, pray keep them safe at home. Wee Willie Winkie runs through the town, upstairs and downstairs, in his nightgown, tapping at the window, crying at the lock, are the babes in their beds, for it's now 10 o'clock? There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread. She whipped them all soundly and put them to bed. There was a man, and he had not, and robbers came to rob him. He crept up to the chimney top, and then they thought they had him. But he got down on the other side, and then they could not find him. He ran 14 miles in 15 days and never looked behind him. There was an old man, and he had a calf, and that's half. He took him out of the stall and put him on the wall, and that's all. Bow, wow, wow, whose dog art thou? Little Tom Tinker's dog, bow, wow, wow. Pussycat sits by the fire. How can she be fair? In walks the little dog. Says Pussy, are you there? How do you do? I thank you kindly, little dog. I fare as well as you. Here I am, little jumping Joan. When nobody's with me, I'm always alone. There was an old woman who lived under the hill, and if she's not gone, she lives there still. Baked apples she sold and cranberry pies, and she's the old woman that never told lies. Simple Simon met a pieman going to the fair. Says Simple Simon to the pieman, pray let me taste your ware. Says the pieman to Simple Simon, show me first your penny. Says Simple Simon to the pieman, indeed, I have not any. Sing a song of sixpence, a bag full of rye, 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was open, the birds began to sing, and wasn't this a dainty dish to set before the king? The king was in the parlor, counting out his money. The queen was in the kitchen, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes. There came a little blackbird, and nipped off her nose. To market, to buy a fat pig. Home again, jiggity jig. Ride a cock horse to Banbury Cross, to see what Tommy can buy. A penny white loaf, a penny white cake, and a 2-penny apple pie. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating some curds and whey. There came a spider and sat down beside her, and frightened Miss Muffet away. 3 wise men of Gotham went to sea in a bowl, and if the bowl had been stronger, my song had been longer. Buy baby bunting, father's gone a-hunting, mother's gone a-milking, sister's gone a-silking, and brother's gone to buy a skin to wrap the baby bunting in. Little Polly Flinders sat among the cinders, warming her pretty little toes. Her mother came and caught her, whipped her little daughter for spoiling her nice new clothes. Tom, Tom, the piper's son, stole a pig and away he run. The pig was eat, and Tom was beat, and Tom ran crying down the street. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. A diller, a dollar, a 10 o'clock scholar. What makes you come so soon? You used to come at 10 o'clock, but now you come at noon. Pussycat, pussycat, where have you been? I've been to London to see the Queen. Pussycat, pussycat, what did you there? I frightened a little mouse under the chair. Pat a cake, baker's man. So do I, master, as fast as I can. Pat it and prick it and mark it with tea, and then it will serve for Tommy and me. Little boy blue, come blow your horn. The sheep's in the meadow, the cow's in the corn. What, is this the way you mind your sheep? Under the haystack, fast asleep? There was an old woman tossed in a blanket, 17 times as high as the moon. But where she was going no mortal could tell, for under her arm she carried a broom. Old woman, old woman, old woman, said I, whither, ah, whither so high? To sweep the cobwebs from the sky, and I'll be with you by and by. Cold and raw the north winds blow, bleak in the morning early, and all the hills are covered with snow, and winters now come fairly. The man in the moon came down too soon to inquire the way to Norwich. The man in the south, he burnt his mouth with eating cold plum porridge. 24 tailors went to kill a snail. The best man among them durst not touch her tail. She put out her horns like a little Kylo cow. Run, tailors, run, or she'll kill you all just now. Lucy Locket lost her pocket. Kitty Fisher found it. There was not a penny in it, but a ribbon round it. Little Tom Tucker sings for his supper. What shall he eat? White bread and butter. How will he cut it without e'er a knife? How will he marry without e'er a wife? To bed, says Sleepyhead. Let's stay a while, says Slow. Put on the pot, says Greedy Sot. We'll sup before we go. Diddle, diddle, dumpling, my son John went to bed with his breeches on. One stocking off and one stocking on. Diddle, diddle, dumpling, my son John. Hi, diddle, diddle, the cat and the fiddle. The cow jumped over the moon. The little dog laughed to see such craft, and the dish ran away with the spoon. The two gray kits and the gray kit's mother all went over the bridge together. The bridge broke down and they all fell in. May the rats go with you, says Tom Bolin. Robin and Richard were two pretty men. They stayed in bed till the clock struck 10. Then up starts Robin and looks at the sky. Ah, brother Richard, the sun's very high. You go before with the bottle and bag, and I will come after, O little Jack Nag. Is John Smith within? Yes, that he is. Can he come set a shoe? Ah, marry too. Here a nail and there a nail. Tick-tack, too. I had a little hen, the prettiest ever seen. She washed me the dishes and kept the house clean. She went to the mill to fetch me some flour and always got home in less than an hour. She baked my bread, she brewed my ale. She sat by the fire and told many a fine tale. When I was a little boy, I lived by myself, and all the bread and cheese I put on a shelf. The rats and the mice, they made such a strife, I was forced to go to London to buy me a wife. The streets were so broad and the lanes were so narrow, I was forced to bring my wife home in a wheelbarrow. The wheelbarrow broke and my wife had a fall, and down came the wheelbarrow, wife and all. 'Twas once upon a time when Jenny Wren was young. So daintily she danced and so prettily she sung. Robin Redbreast lost his heart, for he was a gallant bird. So he doffed his hat to Jenny Wren, requesting to be heard. O dearest Jenny Wren, if you will be but mine, you shall feed on cherry pie and drink new currant wine. I'll dress you like a goldfinch or any peacock gay. So dearest Jen, if you'll be mine, let us appoint the day. Jenny blushed behind her fan and thus declared her mind. Since, dearest Bob, I love you well, I take your offer kind. Cherry pie is very nice, and so is currant wine. But I must wear my plain brown gown and never go too fine. How many days has my baby to play? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again. Little King Boggin, he built a fine hall. Pie crust and pastry crust, that was the wall. The windows were made of black pudding and white, and slated with pancakes. You ne'er saw the like. As I went to Bonner, I met a pig without a wig. Upon my word and honor. Little Jack Horner sat in a corner, eating a Christmas pie. He put in his thumb and pulled out a plum, and said, "Oh, what a good boy am I!" Miss Jane had a bag, and a mouse was in it. She opened the bag, and he was out in a minute. The cat saw him jump and run under the table, and the dog said, "Catch him, puss, soon as you're able." The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts, all on a summer's day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts, and took them clean away. The King of Hearts called for the tarts, and beat the knave full sore. The Knave of Hearts brought back the tarts, and vowed he'd steal no more. Goosey, goosey, gander, where dost thou wander? Upstairs and downstairs, and in my lady's chamber. There I met an old man that wouldn't say his prayers. I took him by his hind legs and threw him downstairs. See, saw, Marjorie Daw, Jackie shall have a new master. Jackie must have but a penny a day, because he can work no faster. Daffy Downdilly is now come to town, with a petticoat green and a bright yellow gown. The lion and the unicorn were fighting for the crown. The lion beat the unicorn all about the town. Some gave them white bread, and some gave them brown. Some gave them plum cake, and sent them out of town. Old King Cole was a merry old soul, and a merry old soul was he. He called for his pipe, and he called for his bowl, and he called for his fiddlers three. Mistress Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and pretty maids all in a row. Bonny lass, pretty lass, wilt thou be mine? Thou shalt not wash dishes, nor yet serve the swine. Thou shalt sit on a cushion and sew a fine seam, and thou shalt eat strawberries, sugar and cream. Handy Spandy, Jacky Dandy, loves plum cake and sugar candy. He bought some at a grocer's shop, and pleased away went hop, hop, hop. Ding dong bell, the cat's in the well. Who put her in? Little Johnny Green. Who pulled her out? Great Johnny Stout. What a naughty boy was that, to drown poor pussy cat, who never did him any harm, and killed the mice in his father's barn. This pig went to market, that pig stayed at home. This pig had roast meat, that pig had none. This pig went to the barn door and cried, "Week, week," no more. There were two blackbirds sitting on a hill, one named Jack and the other named Jill. Fly away, Jack, fly away, Jill. Come again, Jack, come again, Jill. Cross patch, draw the latch, sit by the fire and spin. Take a cup and drink it up, then call your neighbors in. Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard to get her poor dog a bone. But when she came there, the cupboard was bare, and so the poor dog had none. Peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot 9 days old. Spell me that in 4 letters. I will. T-H-A-T. Polly, put the kettle on. Polly, put the kettle on. Polly, put the kettle on. We'll all have tea. Sukey, take it off again. Sukey, take it off again. Sukey, take it off again. They're all gone away. The sow came in with the saddle. The little pig rocked the cradle. The dish jumped up on the table to see the pot swallow the ladle. The spit that stood behind the door threw the pudding stick on the floor. "Odsplit," said the gridiron. "Can't you agree? I'm the head constable. Bring them to me." Little Robin Redbreast sat upon a tree. Up went the pussy-cat, and down went he. Down came the pussy-cat, away Robin ran. Says little Robin Redbreast, "Catch me if you can." Little Robin Redbreast jumped upon a spade. Pussy-cat jumped after him, and then he was afraid. Little Robin chirped and sang, and what did Pussy say? Pussy-cat said, "Mew, mew, mew," and Robin flew away. A farmer went trotting upon his gray mare. Bumpity, bumpity, bump, with his daughter behind him, so rosy and fair. Lumpity, lumpity, lump. A raven cried, "Croak," and they all tumbled down. Bumpity, bumpity, bump. The mare broke her knees, and the farmer his crown. Lumpity, lumpity, lump. The mischievous raven flew laughing away. Bumpity, bumpity, bump, and vowed he would serve them the same next day. Lumpity, lumpity, lump. There was an old woman sold puddings and pies. She went to the mill, and dust flew in her eyes. While through the streets, to all she meets, She ever cries, "Hot pies, hot pies." Old woman, shall we go a-shearing? Speak a little loud, sir, I'm very hard of hearing. Old woman, shall I kiss you dearly? Thank you, kind sir, I hear very clearly. My little old man and I fell out. I'll tell you what 'twas all about. I had money and he had none, and that's the way the noise begun. Jack Sprat could eat no fat, his wife could eat no lean, so twixt them both they cleared the cloth and licked the platter clean. There was an old woman, and what do you think? She lived upon nothing but victuals and drink. Victuals and drink were the chief of her diet, and yet this old woman could never be quiet. What's the news of the day, good neighbor, I pray? They say the balloon has gone up to the moon. There was a crooked man, and he went a crooked mile. He found a crooked sixpence against a crooked stile. He bought a crooked cat, which caught a crooked mouse, and they all lived together in a little crooked house. There was a piper had a cow, and he had naught to give her. He pulled out his pipes and played her a tune, and bade the cow consider. The cow considered very well, and gave the piper a penny, and bade him play the other tune, "Corn rigs are bonny." The man in the wilderness asked me how many strawberries grew in the sea. I answered him, as I thought good, as many red herrings as grew in the wood. Hark, hark, the dogs do bark, the beggars are coming to town, some in rags, some in tags, and some in velvet gown. As I was going to St. Ives, I met 7 wives. Every wife had 7 sacks, every sack had 7 cats, every cat had 7 kits, kits, cats, sacks, and wives. How many were going to St. Ives? I had a little husband no bigger than my thumb. I put him in a pint pot, and there I bade him drum. I bought a little handkerchief to wipe his little nose, and a pair of little garters to tie his little hose. Great A, little a, bouncing B, the cat's in the cupboard, and she can't see. Bat, bat, come under my hat, and I'll give you a slice of bacon, and when I bake, I'll give you a cake, if I am not mistaken. As I was going to Primrose Hill was dirty. There I met a pretty lass, and she dropped me a curtsy. Little lass, pretty lass, blessings light upon you. If I had half a crown a day, I'd spent it all upon you. There was a little boy who went into a barn and lay down on some hay. A calf came out and smelled about, and the little boy ran away. When good King Arthur ruled his land, he was a goodly king. He stole 3 peaks of barley meal to make a bag pudding. A bag pudding the king did make, and stuffed it well with plums, and in it put great lumps of fat, as big as my 2 thumbs. The king and queen did eat thereof, and noblemen beside, and what they could not eat that night, the queen next morning fried. Jackie, come give me your fiddle, if ever you mean to thrive. Nay, I'll not give you my fiddle to any man alive. If I should give my fiddle, they'll think that I've gone mad, for many a joyful day my fiddle and I have had. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I caught a hare alive. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I let him go again. The north wind doth blow, and we shall have snow. And what will poor Robin do then, poor thing? He'll sit in the barn and keep himself warm and hide his head under his wing. Poor thing! You owe me 5 shillings, say the bells of St. Helens. When will you pay me, say the bells of Old Bailey? When I grow rich, say the bells of Shoreditch. When will that be? Say the bells of Stepney. I do not know, says the great bell of Bow. 2 sticks and an apple, ring the bells of Whitechapel. Halfpence and farthings, say the bells of St. Martin's. Kettles and pans, say the bells of St. Anne's. Brickbats and tiles, say the bells of St. Giles. Old shoes and slippers, say the bells of St. Peter's. Pokers and tongs, say the bells of St. John's. There was a man in our town, and he was wondrous wise. He jumped into a bramble bush and scratched out both his eyes. And when he saw his eyes were out, with all his might and main, he jumped into another bush and scratched them in again. Good night, Nora.